Class, this is Mr. Ryan. This is Wednesday, April 28th, and this is now what you'd call a summarizing the last 4 sections. So we'll be going over and reviewing all the different things: circle, ellipses, parabolas, and hyperbolas. So this starts on page 640 in your book, and we're going to come up with a general equation for all these 4 conic sections, which really includes all of them. So if we don't need parts of it, we'll throw it away and just use what we need for each of the ones we need. So the general equation is ax squared, where a and b and c and d and e and f are just generally whole numbers, ax squared plus bxy plus cy squared plus dx plus ey plus f. Okay, so let's look at example 1, and let's look at a center with -2, 1, and an a of 3 and a b of 2, and let's turn this into the equation. So we're starting out with a ellipse. Remember, the plus is between the x squared and the y squared. So we have x plus 2 squared over 3 squared plus y minus 1 squared over 2 squared equals 1. So we have x plus 2 squared over 9 plus y minus 1 squared over 2 over 4 equals 1. Now to get the 9 and the 4 to cancel out, we're going to have to multiply everything by 36 instead of making everything 1, because we're trying to get it into the general form of the equation. So multiplying now by 36, 36 over 9 is 4x plus 2 squared, plus 36 over 4 is 9y minus 1 squared equals 36. So now we have 4x plus 2 squared plus 9y minus 1 squared equals 36. Now expanding the squares, so we have 4x plus 2, which is 4 parentheses x squared plus 4x, 2x and 2x plus 4, plus 9, y minus 1, which is 9y squared minus y is the minus 2y plus 1 equals 36. And now we're going to start collecting terms. 4x squared plus 16x plus 16 plus 9y squared minus 18y plus 9 equals 36. Notice we also reorganized it so the x squareds and the y squareds were there so we could recognize it. So now we then get the number over. So 4x squared plus 9y squared plus 16x minus 18y plus 16 plus 9, taking those together, minus 36, so that's 25 minus 36 is minus 11. And now we can put it into the final form, and this is what an ellipse with center -2, 1, and major axis is 3, minor axis is 2, looks like in general equation form. 4x squared plus 9y squared plus 16x minus 18y minus 11. Notice we didn't use the xy term in the general equation, the bxy. Now the next thing is we're going to be doing identifying the conic characteristics of ax squared and cy squared. See how they differ of having between the 4 different things. So to be a circle, a has to equal c. Another x squared and y squared has to have the same number in front of it. To be a parabola, a has to equal to 0 or c has to equal to 0. That means we either don't have an x squared or we don't have a y squared, but not both. So I can only have an x squared or I can only have a y squared. Now for an ellipse, a is not equal to c, with both not equal to 0, and we add, they have the same sign. And for a hyperbola, a is not equal to c, with both not equal to 0 and different signs, subtract between them. Okay, so now let's look at example 2. This is what we're going to do is start with the equation this time and see what we get. So we start with x squared minus 2y minus 8x minus 15, which we can move the 8x and 15 over, so we get y squared minus 2y equals 8x plus 15, and then we'll complete the square for the y squared on the left side. So y squared minus 2y plus negative 2 over 2, or negative 1 squared, is 1, and then we'll add the 1 as the blank on the other side. So now, completing the square allowed me to do y minus 1 squared equals 8x plus 16, and of course we can factor an 8 out of that. And switching sides, we have 8x plus 2 equals y minus 1 squared. And then now we can divide both sides by 8 and get rid of the 8 in front of x plus 2. So we have x plus 2 is 1/8 y minus 2 squared, and then we'll subtract the 2 from both sides to get our final equation of the parabola, x equals 1/8 y minus 1 squared minus 2. Now, what we can see is that this opens to the right. It has a vertex of negative 2, 1, and it has a p-value of p equals 1 over 4 to 1 times 1/8, which is 1 over 1/2, or 2. So now opening to the right from negative 2, 1, that puts the focus 2 to the right at 0, 1 as shown, and it brings the directrix back from negative 2, 1 to the x equals negative 4 line. Now, by letting x equal 0, we can get exact crossings on the y-axis. So 8 times 1/8 y minus 2, y minus 1 squared equals 2 times 8, multiplying both sides times 8. Y minus 1 squared, square root, equals 16 square root. So y minus 1 equals plus or minus 4, y equals 1 plus or minus 4, y equals negative 3, where the parabola crosses at 0, negative 3, and 5, where the upper part of it crosses at 0, 5. Now here we want to identify the conic 9x squared minus 16y squared plus 54x plus 64y minus 127 equals 0. And here we can see a equals 9 and c equals 16. So they're not equal and they're different signs. That makes it a hyperbola right off. So now we're going to have to rearrange these things and complete the square, both for the x squared and the y squared. So we're going to have 9, and then because it's 9x squared, we have to have 9 and then parentheses x squared, and it's 54, so it'll be 9 times 6x to recover that 54x. And then to complete the square, we'll have 6 over 2, so the 6x over 2 squared, which is a 9. But on the other side, it's not just a 9, it's 9 in front of the parentheses times the 9, or showing over on the right side for the blank x is 81. Now to work with the y squared, we have minus 16y squared, so we've got to bring that out in front of the parentheses. Then we've got y squared minus 4y, because minus 16 times minus 4y is plus 64y. And then to complete the square in the parentheses, we have minus 4 over 2 squared, which is 4. But it's not just 4 because it's got the minus 16 in front of the parentheses. So it's minus 16 times 4, or minus 64 for the blank y. So completing the square there allowed us to put 9x plus 3 squared minus 6, y minus 2 squared equals 127 plus 81 minus 64, and that comes out to 144. So now we're back to setting it equal to 1 for the hyperbola like we did last time. So we divide everything by 144, and on the calculator, 9 over 44 comes out to 1 over 16, and 16 over 44 comes out to 1 over 9. So our final equation for the parabola is x plus 3 squared over 16 minus y minus 2 squared over 9 equals 1. So it's opening on the x, and now we have to figure out our vertices and focus points. So the center, as we said, is negative 3, 2. And we know that underneath the x squared, a squared is 16, so a is 4. So the vertex is in the x direction, negative 3 plus or minus 4, comma 2. When we minus them, we get negative 7, comma 2. When we add negative 3 plus 4, we get 1, comma 2. Now to get my c squared, I need 16 plus 9 is a squared plus b squared is 25. So now the focus is negative 3 plus or minus 5, comma 2. So subtracting gives us negative 8, 2, and adding gives us 2, comma 2. So there I see my center at negative 3, 2, and I see my vertex at 1, 2, and as we said, negative 7, 2, and I see my focus point just outside that at negative 8, 2, and on the other side at 2, 2, the co-vertex is up or down 3 because that's what under the y minus 2 squared. And then I have my asymptotes and my parabolas on both sides of the box for the x direction. Okay? So now we have our homework, and this is different now homework assignment because we don't really get to the stuff in the examples till we start on 12. So this is going to be number 12 through 34 even, page 642. So here on problem 12, we're given x squared over 12 minus y squared over 8 equals 1. That's the hyperbola. So 12 times 8 is 96. So multiplying through by 96, 96 over 12 is 8, and 96 over 8 is 12. So we have 8x squared minus 12y squared, bring the 96 over, minus 96 equals 0, and we know it's a hyperbola. For 14, we have another hyperbola, y minus 3 squared over 45 minus x minus 5 over 5 equals 1. And to turn this into an equation now, we want, this is going to be, well, it'll turn out to be a parabola because we don't have a x squared with our y squared. So we're going to multiply everything by 45. So we end up with just y minus 3 squared, and then minus 45 over 5, or 9 parentheses, x minus 5 equals 1 times 45, or 45. Now we're going to factor out or FOIL out y minus 3, which is y squared minus 6y plus 9, then multiply through the parentheses, minus 9x plus 45 equals 45, and the 45's on both sides of the equals cancel. So we've got y squared minus 9x minus 6y plus 9, and that's the general conic form for the parabola. So on 16, we have an easy parabola, x plus y squared equals 0. We just bring the y squared over, x is minus y squared. The vertex is at 0, 0, and y squared means left or right, and negative means the parabola opens left. Now for 18, we start out with the general equation, 13x squared minus y squared plus 2y plus 12. So we'll have to turn this into completing the square for the y squared. So 13x squared, and this will be a hyperbola because it's x squared and minus y squared. So it's minus parentheses y squared, and then it's got to be minus negative 2y to end up with the plus 2y that we started with. And the fill in the blank is plus 1, 2 over 2 squared. But we're not putting in a plus 1, we're putting in a negative 1 because of the negative in front of the parentheses. So on the other side, we brought over the 12 as negative 12, and we're putting on a negative 1 with that from the completing the square. So now we have 13x squared minus parentheses y minus 1 squared equals negative 13. So we're going to divide by negative 13 and get y minus 1 squared minus x squared equals 1, which is a center of 0, 1, and it's hyperbola, and it opens up on the up or down the y-axis. Continuing on with the homework, we have our general equation, x squared minus 4x minus 4y plus 8. We have an x squared without a y squared, so that means parabola. So putting the 4y and 8 over to the other side, we have x squared minus 4x equals 4y minus 8. And we'll complete the square for the x squared. So x squared minus 4x plus negative 4 over 2 squared is 4. So we'll add the 4 over to the 4y minus 8 plus the 4 from completing the square. And what we'll end up with is, having completed the square on the left side, we'll have x minus 2 squared equals 4y minus 4, which we can factor out the 4 and say 4 parentheses y minus 1. Now, to get rid of that 4 on the right side, we'll multiply both sides by 1/4 and end up with y minus 1 equals 1/4 x squared, x minus 2 parentheses squared, and then we can bring the 1 over and end up with y equals 1/4 x minus 2 squared plus 1. And that's a parabola with a vertex of 2, 1, and it's got an x squared, so it's opening up. Now 22 has the general equation x squared plus y squared. So since x squared and y squared have the same number in front of them, it's going to be a circle. So x squared plus y squared plus 2x minus 6y minus 15 equals 0. Completing the square for x squared plus 2x plus 2 over 2 squared is 1, plus y squared minus 6y minus 6 over 2 squared is 9. And that will be, having moved the 15 over, 15 plus the 1 for the x, completing the square, plus the 9 for the y. So that gives us x plus 1 squared plus y minus 3 squared is 25. And that's a circle like we knew it would be, with a center at negative 1, 3. Now 24, the general equation, is 2x squared plus 4y squared minus 20x minus 8y plus 54 equals 0. Now because it's 2x squared, we have to take the 2 out in front of parentheses x squared and make it 2 times negative 10x to recover the original negative 20x. And then to complete the square, minus 10 over 2 squared, or 25, goes to the right side, but not just 2 times 25, but it is 2 times 25 because of the 2 outside the parentheses that we're completing the square for. And then to work with the 4y squared, we have to put 4 parentheses y squared, and then to recover the 8y, we have to do 4 times minus 2y, and then to complete the square, negative 2 over 2 squared, which is 1, but we're not adding 1, it's 4 times 1 because 4 outside the parentheses. So on the left side, it's negative 54 plus 50 plus 4, or 0. So this gives us a weird thing of 2x minus 5 squared plus 4y minus 1 squared equals 0, and that turns out to be just a point with no radius. So a point with 0 radius is just a point. The center of the circle with 0 radius. So 5, 1 is the answer. Now for 26, we have a 4x squared minus y squared. That tells us hyperbola, plus 16x minus 20. So completing the square for x squared, we have 4 parentheses x squared plus 4x plus 4 over 2 squared 4. But to complete the square, that adds in a 4 times 4, or 16 on the right side. And then the left side is the minus y squared equals 20 plus the 16, or 36. So now, having completed the square for x squared, we have 4x plus 2 squared minus y squared equals 36. And like we did yesterday, we divide by 36 everywhere to get it equal to 1. So 4 over 36 is 1 over 9, and y squared is just over 36. And so the completed simplified equation is x plus 2 squared over 9 minus y squared over 36 equals 1. So that gives us an a equals 3 because 3 squared is 9, and a b equals 6 because 6 squared is 36. So if we look at that, we see our hyperbola centered at negative 2, 0, and it's going plus or minus 3 to the right or left for the vertices. So we go to the left, negative 5, 0, to the right, 1, 0, and from the center, we go up 6 and down 6. So our box is 6 by 12. And to get our c squared, we just add the 9 plus 36, because that's a squared plus b squared. So that gives us 45. And when we simplify 45, we just have square root of 45 is square root of 9, square root of 5, or 3 square root of 5. So adding that to the vertice, from the center rather, it's negative 2 plus or minus 3 square root of 5, 0. So you can see the focus points indicated there. And finishing up, we're given 28 as x squared plus y squared, which makes it a circle again, minus y minus 6. So x squared is by itself, but we have to complete the square for y squared, which is a little different this time. So it's y squared minus y plus negative 1 over 2 squared, which adds the fourth. So having put the 6 over on the right side, 6 times 4 over 4 is 24 over 4, and adding 24 over 4 to 1 over 4 for the completion of the square is 25 over 4. So now we have x squared plus y minus half quantity squared equals 25 fourths. So that gives us a circle with center 0, 1/2 as shown, and a radius of 5/2, or 2.5. And so I went 2.5 left, right, up, and down, and we want you to graph this. Now on 30, I have y squared minus 8x minus 8y minus 32 less than or equal to 0. So y squared minus 8y, completing the square, minus 8 over 2 squared, which would be 4 squared, or 16. So adding 16, so then we'd have, completing the square for y minus 4 is less than or equal to 8x plus 32 plus the 16 that we added, 48. And then we can say y minus 4 squared minus 48, or 8x rather, switching sides. 8x is greater than y minus 4 squared minus 48. Dividing everything by 8 to make it look like a parabola, we have x is greater than or equal to 1/8 y minus 4 squared minus 6. So that shows us that we have a y squared parabola opening left or right, and the 1/8 positive shows us that it's opening right. So the vertex there is the negative 6, 4, and the p is 1 over 4 times 1/8, or 1 over 1/2, or 2. So that moves the focus forward 2 from the negative 6, 4 to negative 4, 4, and back 2 to the x equals negative 8 directrix. Now the greater than or equal just shades everything inside the parabola as shown. Now 32 is 16x squared minus y squared, a hyperbola right off, minus 96x minus 10y plus 103. So dealing with the x squared, we have 16 parentheses x squared minus 6x plus minus 6 over 2 squared, which is 9. But it's not 9, it's 16 times 9, which is 144, which we add to the other side, minus parentheses y squared plus 10y plus 10 over 2 squared is 25, but it's minus 25. So on the right side, we have negative 103 minus 125, or minus 128 plus 144, or 16. So that left us with 16x minus 3 squared minus y plus 5 squared equals 16. Divide everything by 16. X minus 3 squared minus y plus 5 squared over 16 less than or equal to 1. Now the center is 3, negative 5, underneath the x minus 3 squared, there's just a 1, so a is 1. Under y plus 5 squared, there's a 16, so b is 4. So the vertex is the center, 3 plus or minus 1 comma negative 5, or 2 comma negative 5, and 4 comma negative 5 is shown there on the box. Okay, and then from the center, which is 3 negative 5, we go up and down 4, and that's the box shown there. And then the hyperbola, the focus points, are out beyond the vertices, and the inequality, the less than or equal, just shows us that we shade inside the hyperbola. And the last one here, this was a long lesson. Okay, so here we have 7x squared plus 16y plus 28x minus 64y minus 20 less than or equal to 0. So we have to, for the x squareds, take 7 parentheses x squared plus 7 times 4 gives me my 28, plus 4 over 2 squared is 4, but it's not 4, it's 7 times 4, or 28 on the right side. And for the y squared, we have to do 16 parentheses y squared minus 4y minus 4 over 2 squared, which is 4, but it's plus 16 times 4 is 64. So here we now have 7x plus 2 squared plus 16 y minus 2 squared less than or equal to 112, because 20 plus 28 plus 64 on the right side is 112. And so over on the side here, we can see we're going to divide everything by 112. 7 over 112 is 1 over 16, and 16 over 112 is 1 over 7. So we end up with x plus 2 squared over 16 plus y minus 2 squared over 7 is less than or equal to 1. This puts this inside the ellipse. So the center is at negative 2, 2 is shown. The a under the x plus 2 squared becomes 4. So negative 2 plus or minus 4 comma 2 gives me negative 6 comma 2 and 2 comma 2. And the b is the square root of 7. So from the center up and down the square root of 7, and it's inside the ellipse. And God bless you, and I hope you can see a sermon tonight on Facebook Live. Stay close to the Lord. Don't forget Easter.